Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Catherine. That was beautiful to just simmer us down from the craziness of the world. And there are still a few folks coming in, so that's great. We'll just welcome them to join in crazy traffic. What a beautiful June morning. Stunning out there. So lovely to see everyone. My name's Rebecca, and I'm the service associate for this morning. We meet here every Sunday morning in the home of the North Shore Unitarians, located on the ancestral territory of the Coast Salish people. We're here on Sunday mornings to help each other live with greater depth, meaning, and purpose. And we do that best together in community. We support each other, we laugh, we sing, we eat food together, and then we connect, and we use that to take forward into our week. Today, also, we celebrate Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. For those of you who are fathers who have played a father-like role in someone's life, we thank you deeply. It's an important, nurturing role in our world. Masculinity has taken a big hit, toxic masculinity, in our world, in our culture, and that diminishes significantly the value of fathers and fathering roles in our world. So happy Father's Day to everyone. It's so good to be together. Let us rise and sing Song 1051, We Are, and let us sing this in a rousing and uplifting manner this morning.
For each child that's born, the morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, the morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandfather's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of lust and sons of great visions. We are sisters of mercy and daughters of love. We are lovers of life and builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and wisdom of ages. We are our grandfather's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, the morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, the morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
Well, that was a kicker to get us going. That song was actually written by Isawe Barnwell. She's an African-American singer and composer, and you may know her name because she was famous in the a cappella ensemble Sweet Honey in the Rock. Yeah, from 1979 to 2013. But she also founded the Jubilee Singers, which is a choir at All Souls Unitarian in Washington. And she founded that in 1977. And her thought about that song, she says, for each child that's born, a morning star rises. It's meant to define the uniqueness for each one of us. No matter what our race, our culture, our ethnicity, each one of us has been called into being and are the sum total of all who came before. In her words, each and every one of us stands atop a lineage that had at its core mothers and fathers and teachers and dreamers and shamans and healers and builders and warriors and thinkers and. And she says, in spite of our uniqueness, we come from and we share that experience that every humankind has ever had. And in this way, we are all one. Amen to that. All right, let's light some candles. This is our tradition every week at the start of the service. And Liz Moffat has kindly agreed to come and light our candles this morning. For fun, we're going to light the candles in reverse order, shaking it up. We'll end with our chalice lighting together. So Liz could start on this side. That'd be great. Except you're probably going to need the lighter candle. Our little one's gone out there. The wind from the window, the door here, has blown it out. There you go. So, many of you know Liz, if you've been here for any length of time. Liz needs no introduction. But there are so many layers and stories to all of us that we thought it would be fun to share a little bit more about Liz. She doesn't know this is coming. Okay, so Liz was born in Montreal. She grew up in the United Church. And she and Carrie, if I understand correctly, discovered UUism when your children were small and you were actually attending another church that wasn't feeling so good, wasn't a good fit. Right. And your friend and neighbor suggested that this congregation might be a good fit. And that friend and neighbor was Catherine Nicholson, who had started at that time as our music director. So
just before that, Carrie and I were married in the downtown church.
Right, the downtown. So they were married in Van U. There you go. You've now been members here for 29 years. That's amazing. And Liz has served on the board and on the Cares and Concerns, is currently on the nominating committee, has served on the lay chaplaincy, done many things, sings in the choir. So beautiful. Thank you, Liz. Now, the other piece to Liz that many of you know is that she and Carrie are trained music therapists. They've been integral pillars to this professional community for their entire careers, along with a good number of others in our congregation, actually, including our beautiful Nancy McMaster, who we miss dearly, and who I still feel her spirit like flits amongst the rows of chairs here. And you continue to do some work as a private music therapist, even to this day, which is amazing. That's inspiring for us to have a long career in the work that you're passionate about. And one little other twist I want to add, the Canadian Association of Music Therapists just celebrated their 50th anniversary in Halifax in May, and guess who was the keynote speaker? That is amazing. So with all of that, Liz, would you light our candle of joy? And as part of that, we want to celebrate what a beautiful joy you are to the world. So thank you. A couple other big joys. We had a wine and cheese here on Friday night. That was fun for anyone who attended. There was a lovely work party yesterday in the garden that cleaned up a bunch in the garden. Beautiful. Our grounds look even more beautiful. So thank you to everyone who did that. Another joy, our Catherine has been invited to play with the Vancouver Metropolitan Orchestra. Yeah. Woo! Big deal, Catherine. She's going to play at the Orpheum in November, and it's a half-hour piece that is written by how long? 1.5 hours. I totally missed that. Wow! Written by a Cantonese Canadian. So that's amazing, Catherine. It's worth celebrating. Thank you. Yeah, we need lots of joys like that to get us through this crazy world we're living in. A few sorrows. The Dryden Creek fire in Squamish continues to burn. Lots of us have friends in that area. It's quite frightening. So we hold that in our hearts today. We also have a sorrow, Frank Simons, who's the son of Mary and Stuart Simons. He died May 17th. And there'll be a memorial in Ottawa on the end of July. So for all those sorrows and joys that live openly or still sit in the silent sanctuaries of our heart, we have our first candle this morning. Next, Liz is going to light our candle of global concerns. Where do you start? I think this morning we light this candle for the courage of ordinary people, like in the United States yesterday, who turned out for the No Kings events, following on the examples of those people, brave people in the city of Los Angeles, the courageous leaders in the state of California. We light a candle also for those killed yesterday, both in the US and Gaza and Iran and so many other places. We're living in such a strange time. It takes the courage of ordinary, everyday people to fight valiantly in the hope that we can reverse this downward spiral, crazy spiral of events. Margaret Wheatley said, "Every great change in the world begins with the action of just a few people." So may we support those people in the world, be inspired by them, and using whatever language works for you, may we send our love, our thoughts, our energy, or our prayers for their courage and survival. And then lastly, let's light our chalice this morning. We start this at the beginning of our service to mark our time together as special or reverent. We kindle this flame as a symbol of our gathering. May the light of understanding illuminate our darkness. May the warmth of sharing bring us peace. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Poor Liz thought she was just coming to light a few candles. Thank you, Liz. Okay, who am I? This great topic. It's said that there are 3 important questions that get asked at critical times of our lives. Who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? And today we'll focus on that first question, who am I? At first it kind of seems like a trivial question, like one maybe not worth dwelling on. I think in our younger years, we're used to asking that question as we move through transitions in our life, like we graduate high school, or we're starting a new program like college or university, or we're dating, or we're seeking to settle on a new life partner, or we're interviewing for a new job, we're moving to a new community, we're seeking new friendships. At those points in our life, those transitions, we often reflect on who am I. But once we settle into patterns of everyday life, many of us don't stop to ponder, who am I? In fact, I think if we asked that in everyday conversation, most of us would respond with a joke. Or they'd flippantly, kind of knee-jerk, reflexively respond the way we often ask and answer that question of like, how are you? And we all go, I'm fine, thanks, or I'm good. But it's pretty superficial, our response. And I think the who am I really is a much deeper and important question. Parker Palmer, as we know, he's an American author, educator, activist. He's probably best known for his work inspiring a generation of teachers with innovative ideas about community, knowing, and wholeness, spiritual wholeness. We quote Parker Palmer often in UU circles, but he's actually a Quaker. This is one of his quotes. Before I can tell my life what I want to do with it, I must listen to my life telling me who I am. I must listen for the truths and the values at the heart of my own identity. Not the standards by which I must live, but the standards by which I cannot help but live if I'm living my own life. And to me, that quote is bolstered by another quote. There's a woman, Krista Tippett. She's an amazing journalist, author, public intellectual. She runs a great podcast called On Being, and she interviews people from all spiritual and theological walks of life. Very wise. And she says, to live a life of depth and meaning, we must move back and forth between inner spiritual work and our outer presence in the world. Makes sense. One more from Parker Palmer. He said, our deepest need as humans is to protect and nurture our root of inner wisdom, that some would call the soul, our root of inner wisdom that makes work and life itself fruitful. He says, if our inner wisdom, our inner self, is well fed, then we neither need to flee from the world or exploit it. Instead, we can love the world with all of its and our flaws by trying to live in a way that models life's possibilities. Truly compassionate work is our only chance, individually and collectively, to try and transcend and transform this crazy world. And he says, but that kind of work, that love for the world which gives in life-giving ways, is only possible if we know when and where to seek sanctuary, how to restore and nurture our inner self, that core of who I am. Well, that's the goal of this lofty, beautiful place we're in, right? In our own little way, no matter who you are, no matter what your story is, no matter what happened to you in the world before now, no matter how bruised you were when you walked through the doors here for the first time or even this morning, here you're welcome to nurture your inner wisdom, bathed in the love and support of an amazing intergenerational community. We move back and forth in our life of depth and meaning between inner spiritual work and outer presence to the world. Now let's take that apart a little bit further. There's this great quote, we do not see things as they are, we see them as we are. It's a quote by Anais Nin. Anybody remember her? She's still living. She's a French writer, feminist. Most of her writing was done in the 20th century. She wrote many things. In fact, she was the first prominent woman of the West to write publicly erotica. But anyway, this is just a simple, straightforward quote. Okay. It's not a new thought, right? We know that all that we see and do in the world is centered through the lens, through our perspective of how we exist in the world. Another quote, if you're troubled by some external thing, it's not the thing that troubles you, it's your own judgment of it. Okay, so that was said by Marcus Aurelius. Any scholars in the world? Anyone know who Marcus Aurelius was? Yes? Oh, I'm impressed. You're amazing. So he was a Roman emperor. So this quote comes from the 2nd century, like year 161. So these are not new insights in the world, clearly. That's why we need to examine who we are. Well, where does our sense of self actually live in our bodies? It's an interesting question, and it turns out we're only just in the last few years figuring that out. It's been proposed for a long time that the sense of self in our bodies could be split into 2 parts. One is the I, the physical kind of awareness of experiences in our body. And the second part is the me, that's like the mental narrative you tell about yourself, and it comes through things like memory, habits, personality, emotion, feelings, our past experiences, all of those. But neuroscientists are only just in the last few years actually identifying the parts of self and where they exist in the brain. They're both complex pathways located in separate networks within the brain, but they still haven't fully determined where and how these 2 parts of self integrate and connect. It's fascinating. The I, the physical awareness of our body, is constantly switching back and forth between awareness and like our conscious state and our unconscious state. And that makes sense. Like right now, you are not very aware of what's happening with your big toe, unless you switch to thinking about your big toe, and then you're totally aware, right? So our body's constantly doing that. Fascinating. And all of that input forms a mental map of our sense of bodily or physical self. But then the part of the me, the kind of mental narrative, was just discovered in 2001 by this neurologist, Marcus Reichli. It is part of this thing called the default mode network. Who made up that name? That's crazy. But anyway, default mode network. It's a multi-dimensional series of impulses and circuits between all different parts of the brain, and that network is active when we are not focused on something in the external world. So either we're daydreaming, or we're just thinking inwardly, processing a memory or something. And that default mode network plays an important role processing and continually creating and reconstructing our sense of self. Quite fascinating. And then just 2 years ago, in 2023, a physician scientist named Joseph Parvizi identified the specific structure in the brain, which is sandwiched between the 2 hemispheres. It's called the anterior precuneus, and it acts as the integrator of all of the things that we experience as the physical I and the mental or narrative me. Fascinating. So our whole sense of who we are, our sense of self, is a complex interaction of neuronal connections, constantly interpreting and integrating that everything that we experience as the physical I and the kind of narrative me. All right, that's the end of our neuroscience lesson. That's the most depth I can get into around it, but it's fascinating, and it's really only just being discovered in the last few years. So back to who am I? Well, there are lots of ways to start to answer that question. And David Brooks, in his book, The Road to Character, he describes resume virtues versus eulogy virtues. You'll see where this is going. Resume virtues describe our achievements, right? They're descriptors of our ambitions, our external successes. Whereas eulogy values are deeper. They're our moral qualities. They're the ones at the core of our being. And they're often relational, right? They speak to the way we connect with people. And in our society, we kind of live in conflict between those values. They're not fully reconcilable. Resume virtues see us venturing outward, and they use external utilitarian logic, creating, achieving, input, output, effort, reward, practice make perfect, impress the world. Eulogy virtues see us returning to our roots, using morals to judge and examine our internal life, where we recognize our own brokenness, where we see that maybe we have to give to receive, where we recognize that failure can lead to strength. How sometimes we lose ourselves to find ourselves. One way of being in the world aggressively cultivates our strengths and diminishes our weaknesses. whereas the other actually confronts our weaknesses in order to build our strengths. So when we start to talk about who I am, we're really going to focus on the eulogy values, the ones that reflect our inner journey and our inner work. Lots of places ask this question, who am I? Lots of high-functioning workplaces now have team development events, right, where they ask employees to self-reflect. Our daughter's got an internship just for the summer, and as part of her work, they flew the whole company to Toronto, and for 100 people for the day, did a whole thing around teamwork and self-reflection and introspection. And the idea is that productivity would increase with good self-reflection and introspection. And really, it's been shown that if that type of activity is encouraged and even role modeled by management, then it leads to more powerful conversations about blind spots and weaknesses and how we can support each other as a team and pressure points and zones of vulnerability. I mean, it's true. Without self-reflection, we can just blitz through life not really thinking and reflecting on whether what we're doing is a good thing to determine, well, what's working or what's not. We can get stuck. We also can find ourselves unconsciously reacting to things, whatever comes our way. When we're in our reactive mode, we don't necessarily consider our actions or words before we speak. I think we all kind of have had experiences of that. The poet Naomi Shihab Nye, she talks about the many selves alive inside of us, our child self, our older self, our confused self, that self over here that makes a lot of mistakes. And she talks about introspection allowing ourselves to meet these selves, which continue inside us our whole lives. She has a neat way of describing how you can have a whole community in there inside, and that helps us survive. Now, when I first read that, I thought that's pretty funny, like there's a whole community of people inside of me. Sometimes I just like them all to pipe down. But as I was thinking about this, I suddenly remembered so vividly this moment from many years ago. I was in my 20s, I was struggling. I went and saw a counselor, which I've done several times in my life, and every time I do it, I think, why do I not do this more often? Anyway, this counselor was asking what was going on for me, and undoubtedly, I'm sure in tears, I was sharing all of my situation and my angst and anxieties and worries, as we do. And she actually, she led me in this exercise that had me separate my puddles of emotion and roles and perspectives. And she asked me to imagine myself as actually being made up as a number of different kind of selves. And then she had me initiate a conversation between them. What would your wiser grandmother self say to this younger, confused, distraught self? So simple. And it was life-changing for me, because I think in that vulnerable moment in my life, I was a young, single person who felt alone, confused, overwhelmed, directionless. She helped me see in a very tangible way, and yet a simple way, that maybe the support and strength that I needed was already inside me. On a lighter note, I know this young adult very well. She says she thinks of different parts of herself in particular after she's going to bed after a night on the town. She says to herself, sober me would really want to feel hydrated, and that motivates her to put 2 glasses of water on the bedside table. And she also says, sober me would be so happy if those dishes were done, and that motivates her to do the dishes before she crashes into bed. I think that's humorous, but it probably does reflect something that's effective and empowering about approach to looking at ourselves. Socrates famously said, the unexamined life is not worth living. Okay, so we're back to this ancient question, who am I? It inevitably leads to a deeper question, whose am I? It was Douglas Steer, a Quaker teacher, that said that. He said, it leads to whose am I because there's no identity outside of relationship. You can't be a person by yourself. To ask whose am I is to extend the question far beyond our own little self-absorbed perspective and wonder, who needs me? Who loves me? To whom am I accountable? To whom do I answer? Whose life is altered by my choices? Whose life or lives is my own life all bound up inextricably in obvious or invisible ways? Some of this is quite cultural. There was this paper in 1991 by two psychologists, Marcus and Kitayama, and they explored the significant differences between Western and Eastern cultures when it comes to how people process and express emotion. And they concluded that we have divergent cultural understandings of the self. Our Western culture emphasizes self and independence so much that to not attend to your own inner feelings is viewed as like inauthentic or a denial of your true self. Whereas in some other cultures in the world, like East Asian cultures, they prioritize not independence but interdependence. So they recognize that the interpersonal context in the idea of self, your inner attributes, your private feelings have merit only in the way that they affect how you show up in relationships. Interesting. Your inner being only matters in the way that it influences how you interact with others. Fascinating. Okay, let's just pause for a moment. Just close your eyes and ask yourself, who am I? And try and get yourself out of those resume virtues into some of those eulogy virtues or moral attributes, and then even deeper into these thoughts about whose am I? We're going to pause in silence for a minute or so, and Allison's going to noodle with some music and then bring us out of this pause with a beautiful song. Who am I? Whose am I?
The truth I learned when I was 8. My dad swam the length of Spirit Lake. Yeah, it must have been 1,000,000 miles. This I knew is true. But leaves don't drop, they just let go and make a space for seeds to grow. And every season brings a change. A tree is what a seed contains. To die and live is life's refrain. My mother sang while hanging clothes. The notes weren't perfect, heaven knows, but heaven opened any way. This I knew was true. For leaves don't drop, they just let go and make a space for seeds to grow. And every season brings a change. A tree is what a seed contains. To die and live is what life's refrain. I left her with some groceries. Said, check the oil and call me, please. She said, hey, Mom, I'll be just fine. This I knew was true. 'Cause leaves don't drop, they just let go and make a space for seeds to grow. And every season brings a change. A tree is what a seed contains. To die and live is life's refrain. I've traveled through my history, from certainty to mystery. God speaks in rhyme and paradox. This I know is true. And finally, when life is through, I'm what I am, not what I do. 'Cause it comes down to you and your next breath. This I know is true. And leaves don't drop, they just let go and make a space for seeds to grow. And every season brings a change. A tree is what a seed contains. To die and live is life's refrain.
There are tribes in some African countries that believe we are each created in this world with our own song. And their tradition as a community is to honor that song by singing it as a welcome when the child is born, as comfort when the child's ill, in celebration when the child marries, and in affirmation and love when the child's death comes. It's such a beautiful idea. In our culture, it feels like so few of us even know our own song very well, and even fewer of us are brave enough to sing it aloud. Welcome, Ron.
Life is always unfinished business. A poem by the Reverend Richard S. Gilbert. In the midst of the whirling day, in the hectic rush to be doing, in the frantic pace of life, pause here for a moment. Catch your breath, relax your body, loosen your grip on life. Consider that our lives are always unfinished business. Imagine that the picture of our being is never complete. Allow your life to be a work in progress. Do not hurry to mold the masterpiece. Do not rush to finish the picture. Do not be impatient to complete the drawing. From beckoning birth to dawning death, we are in process. And always there is more to be done. Do not let the incompleteness weigh on your spirit. Do not despair that imperfection marks your every day. Do not fear that we are all still in the making. Let us instead be grateful that the world is still to be created. Let us give thanks that we can be more than we are. Let us celebrate the power of the incomplete, for life is always unfinished business.
Thank you, Ron. We're all unfinished right up until the moment we die. I think that's a helpful thought. Human beings are called beings to remind us that we're a verb. Each of us is unfinished, a work in progress. We'd probably be much kinder in this world if in our description of ourselves and others, we always added the word yet. Jacob, he's not very compassionate yet. I'm not feeling very brave today yet. Adding yet changes everything. It reminds us that we all have growing edges. You're feeling broken? Well, broken is only a stage in this lifelong process. Only lifeless things are permanently broken. Impermanence is actually our greatest strength. Change is our most fundamental quality of life. As I started working on this service and I started thinking about who I am, in my very superficial way, I thought, well, there's two parts of me. I like to cook, and I like to garden. And as I reflected on those two activities, I came across two beautiful analogies that I'd like to share. It's about humans and growth and change, and this idea that we're ever unfinished. Long ago, I discovered that one of my fun kitchen pursuits is making new creations out of leftovers. Takes imagination, a little bit of skill, spices, herbs, flavors, and salt. My kids always say I need to add way more salt. So when I go to make a meal, I open the fridge and I see an assortment of leftovers that I can choose from. There's those vegetables that are starting to wilt. There's the rice from the night before. There's, that sauce left over from pasta a few nights ago. And in that same way, any one of us can open the door on our past life, and we can find and use the leftovers there too. We find pieces from our families of origin. Maybe it's your parents' voices, their words, their phrases, their admonitions, their praise, their warnings. Perhaps you can still see and feel their expressions of love or their anxieties. And you can find any or all of those in trace amounts or in excessive, overbearing quantities. Open the door to gaze into your past life, and we also find memories of many past events, relationships, ones that were beautiful, ones that ended a little bit imperfectly, decisions, ones that went well, ones that we made with no real deep understanding of the consequences. Jobs we took, jobs we wanted and didn't get, jobs we turned down. I mean, all of us have stories and circumstances and accidents and illnesses, times we were born into, periods of our lives we feel like we just skated through. We can find flavors of our ethnicity, our family heritage, social customs, maybe habits that were funny or odd that somehow have become deeply ingrained in us. We see the people who touched our lives deeply and directly, and then others who just touched us in unaccounted and unexpected ways. Maybe people who were there at special moments and changed us or gifted us. Simple gifts like a smooth rock or a happy day or an unforgettable experience. Of course, sometimes their gifts or those moments were unwanted and unwelcome. And then the flavors we're left with are sorrow and guilt and ruin, maybe hopes and fears, forgivings, forbiddens. When we open that door and we see those leftovers, we can pause for a moment. We can choose. We are not bound by tradition or history or a recipe card. Cooking, like gardening, is not static. We can choose to use new skills, new tools, new ingredients. We can incorporate new ideas. I mean, even if you try and make the same thing twice, it never turns out exactly the same. We change. Our taste buds change, our moods change, we all change. For a long time, I thought I'd be a great cook. I'd be a success if I cooked like my mother. And then, of course, I realized at some point it's not true. I mean, she's a good cook. I learned a ton from watching her cook. But her tastes are different than my tastes. I've tasted things she's never tasted. I've been to places that she never has, and vice versa. We are, each one of us, such a collection of leftovers. Leftovers from our infancy all the way to leftovers from yesterday. And the longer we're at life, the more leftovers there are to choose from. We all cook with leftovers, some of us with imagination and creativity and maybe joy. Some of us cook with timid curiosity, and some of us cook with resentment. Some people with pessimism or even fatalism. But every day we get to start again. We get to choose. We're human. We don't choose well all the time. There are times we're not able to choose well. And there are some people in this world who've been so scarred that they are unable to make anything good out of it, ever. But most of us, well, we can take what we're given, what we've encountered, what we've done, we can reflect, and then we're given the chance to recreate it into something else. We can show up in a different way than before. Each one of us is cooking with leftovers, and at each point of our life, the dish of the day can be something different. That's my thought about cooking. The other analogy comes from gardening, and it's the compost pile. And it's actually inspired by this really neat book on spirituality and story called Good Soil by Jeff Chu. So compost, hear me out. All these things that happen in our life, some live very close to the surface. Some get fully integrated into who we are every day. And then there's other parts that we bury way down deep. We're not aware that they're even in there, but they are. And they slowly, gradually, kind of like compost, they break down into micro parts of whatever the story was or the event or the relationship. They're still in us, and they continue to turn over. Until one day, from some deep, dark corner of muck, some new shoot comes out, fertilized by that deep, dark thing. And if we think of ourselves, our inner wisdom, kind of like slowly churning compost, that helps us create room. creates space to imagine things that are beyond what we can see now. I mean, that's true for ourselves, but it's true for others and true for the world. And taking that long view allows me to have patience for myself. Patience for myself and others who drive really loud. Patience for myself now, and patience and grace for my former self that I now, in retrospect, see more clearly. Maybe even I have deeper gratitude for those who still loved me in my less developed days and stages. That analogy of the compost pile of life reminds us that any one bit of us, any rotten vegetable of your life, is not the end of your story, that everything settles, turns slowly, and at some point can come out as something quite different. But we can't do that work alone. It's too hard. It's lonely. It's pretty dark. We need assistance from friends and family and chosen community in all those inner struggles. Sometimes people don't even know how to help, but they just show up, and they nudge us onwards in some gentle little way. And other times people see us floundering, and still they just show up, and they show us grace, and they support us as we regroup. Sometimes more by actions than words, they remind us that they believe in us. They help us to remember we're loved and accepted, and they nudge us along until we're able to respond to the life's upset with a bit more insight and gratitude and humor. Miller Williams wrote this cute little poem, and it's called Compassion. He said, have compassion for everyone you meet, even when they don't want it. What seems conceit, bad manners, or cynicism is always a sign of things that no ears have heard, no eyes have seen. You do not know what wars are going on down there where the spirit meets the bone. Martin Luther King Jr. called that intervulnerability. We're all connected in an inescapable web of mutuality, which is our 7th UU principle, right? Respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are all a part. Martin Luther King reminded us that intervulnerability, that's the true salvation in this world. Awareness of the mutuality of suffering impels us to search for ways to heal the whole rather than encase ourselves in a bubble of denial and impossible individualism. So let us look inwardly. Let us strengthen our inner wisdom. Let us find the people and places that help us do that well, our sanctuaries, and those people and places will change throughout our lifetime. And let's be nurtured and then act outwardly. With the support of a healthy community, we can find the language and the stories and the narratives with which to draw meaning and see ourselves, our lives, as part of a larger narrative of wholeness and healing. May it be so. We're now going to collect the offering. Our outreach recipient for the month of June is the Girls Empowerment Camps run by the North Shore Women's Center. These days, adolescence is an extremely complicated process, especially with today's online world, and the North Shore Women's Center provides a variety of free and accessible avenues to educate, encourage, and empower young people on the North Shore. Your offerings throughout the whole month of June will be used to support the teens attending these empowerment camps. And this summer, in addition, we're actually going to host two weeks of those camps right here at North Shore Unitarians. Yeah, our facility is being offered free to this organization. A reminder, you can give by cash into the envelopes. Just write your name and you'll get a tax receipt. You can also give by text or credit card with instructions on the screen. Thank you for your generosity. Would the ushers please start the collection?
A day in December, the sun on my face, in the middle of motion, one quiet place, at the center of strangers, meeting of souls, an embrace that is treasured wherever I go. When I struggle in shadow, there are voices that come and whisper so low, oh, you know, you're a fortunate one. Then I gather my blessings from the light and the dark and welcome them into my grateful heart. The blue of the moonlight, all the heavens contain, the madness of music helps keep me safe. At the core of confusion, a small flame that glows, there to guide me wherever I go. Slighting the spirit, my feelings grow numb. Then it comes like a kiss, remember this, you're a fortunate one. Then I gather my blessings from the light and the dark and ask them to stay in my grateful heart. A day that's remembered in a small sacred space, walking toward balance, praying for grace. I gather my blessings like the gifts that they are and place them quite gently in my grateful heart.
Thank you for your generosity. These collections will be contributed to our outreach recipient. Little reminder for anyone who's got a pledge outstanding for the church here, just saying you could give those in too at some point. All right, a few announcements. Please join us after the service for a lovely lunch of cheese and cold cuts and salads, provided kindly by Diane Hicks. She was here at 8 a.m. bringing in salads. She's amazing for this community. Suggested donation is $5, but if you don't have $5, just come. It's great to connect after the service. Marcia and Barb from our environmental team are encouraging us to participate in an online eco-challenge this July. There was a small group from the North Shore that participated 3 years ago, and they really enjoyed it. We all know that plastics accumulate in the environment, causing harm to wildlife, and increasingly we know it causes harm to human life. Back in April, Randy Burke presented this amazing story of how he took his ship, his crew, on up to the coast of northern BC, and they hauled away tons of plastic waste. And many of us kind of responded with like, well, what can we do? And this Plastics Eco Challenge is a way we can learn more about it and do something about it. Marcia and Barb will be available in the sanctuary at 12:15 for anyone who wants to talk and learn more about how to get involved. If you're not able to stay today, but you're interested, you could speak to Marcia and Barb, you could grab the handout that'll be at the back, or you could follow the links in the Friday e-bulletin. I love this approach of the Eco Challenge. It's changed so much from the 3 R's of years ago. The new kind of slogan is reimagine our relationship with plastic. I just think that's so grounded in reality, reimagine our relationship with plastic. And the 3 R's of this slogan campaign are refuse, reduce, and rethink. Refuse what you don't need, reduce what you can, and rethink what's possible. So thank you, Marcia and Barb, for your leadership in this. Next week is the last service of the season, and it's the flower communion, woo, which is always a favorite in our community. It's a long-standing UU ritual. It's got a long and important history. We're all asked to bring a flower or two to contribute to a large communal bouquet, and then in a beautiful, gentle process, we actually select a different flower from the bouquet to take home. It's usually powerful and beautiful, not to be missed next Sunday. Are there any other announcements? All right, well then let us rise as we're able and sing one last song together, 3-2-4, where my free spirit onward leads.
Where my free spirit onward lead, there shall be my way. By my own light illumined, I've journeyed night and day. My age a time-worn cloak I wear, as once I wore my youth. I celebrate life's mystery, I celebrate death's truth. My family's not confined to mother, mate, or child, but it includes all creatures, be they tame or be they wild. My family upon this earth includes all living things, on land or in the ocean deep, or borne aloft on wings. The ever-spinning universe, well, there shall be my home. I sing and spin within it, as through this life I roam. Eternity is hard to ken, and harder still is this. A human life, when truly seen, is briefer than a kiss.
Beautiful lyrics. A human life, when truly seen, is briefer than a kiss. Please be seated. Let's close our service. We extinguish this flame, but carry with us the light of vision and the warmth of hope. The world calls us to live with depth, meaning, and purpose. We go forth with courage and love. Friends, at some point this week, take a moment, take a long moment, and ask yourself, who am I? Whose am I? And then later in the week, you're going to reflect and think, I didn't mention that in my list. And then you can think, how come I didn't mention that in your list? And this exercise will spin onward for the next few weeks. Look at your leftovers. Pause. Ask what's a new possibility for today. We're all human beings, and we're all not finished. Not yet. It is worth working on our own inner compost pile, because we do see things in life as we are, not as they actually are. And lastly, a reminder to just show up. Wherever and whenever you can, we must show up to help others. We can live a life of depth and meaning by moving back and forth between our inner spiritual work and our healthy outer presence in the world. Please rise, join hands as you're able, and let's sing Circle Round.